Take a few moments to consider the various relationships you know about or those in which you've been involved. It's likely you know of relationships that include people who have found partners in need of rescuing. The rescue could have been from anything: unhappiness, financial chaos, substance abuse, depression, an abusive relationship, medical issues, or a past that left them wounded. Perhaps the rescuers you know intuitively recognize their partner's core neediness or vulnerability, regardless of how well disguised that person's weakness was at the beginning of their relationship. You will discover that many rescuers often go from one person in need of rescue to another, riding into each new partner's life on a white horse to save the day. In the initial stages of the relationship, the rescuer seems gracious and happily altruistic, but as time goes by, he feels increasingly unhappy, disappointed, critical, and powerless. These are our white knights. Although a white knight can exist in a wide range of relationships, such as in a business or a friendship, for the purposes of our book, we will focus on the white knight in intimate relationships. 7+ powerful lessons from the book, The White Knight Syndrome. Number 1. A white knight can be a woman or man of any age, race, sexual orientation, culture, or socioeconomic status. The contemporary real-life white knight may appear to be a gem of a partner, but is actually a tragic hero. White knights demonstrate not only a willingness, but also a need to rescue. In fact, often without self-awareness, white knights seek out as partners those who are especially needy or vulnerable. Thus, in our conceptualization of the white knight syndrome, the inclination and the need to rescue are the fundamental requirements for white knighthood. What motivates the white knight to rescue her partner? The answer lies in understanding her goals for being in the relationship in the first place, goals that may be beyond her awareness. Although the white knight's heroic actions may take the form of slaying her partner's metaphorical dragons, her real goal involves slaying the dragons from her own past. The white knight hopes to receive admiration, validation, or love from her partner. Yet at a deeper level, the compulsive rescuer is trying to repair the negative or damaged sense of herself that developed in childhood. Number 2. You became who you are through your relationships with caregivers, siblings, peers, and mentors. Biological predispositions, sociocultural factors, and an array of experiences influenced how you think about yourself and how you interact with others. Early in your life, you may have developed unhealthy patterns in order to obtain the emotional connections you needed. Often, such unhealthy patterns persist into adulthood and predispose you to have certain kinds of relationships. During your childhood, as you adapted to your experiences with your caregivers, you developed certain beliefs about yourself and others. Generally, the beliefs that children develop are healthy and move them toward forming positive relationships and purposeful lives. For example, a secure relationship with your parents may have led you to assume that you can trust others to care about your needs. At other times, the beliefs that are developed can detrimentally affect how the child feels about herself and prevent her from pursuing or achieving her desired goals. Number 3. A child will often take on her parents' feelings of shame and weakness by making the shame and weakness her own. This serves to maintain the child's perception of her parents as strong, ideal, and protective. Thus, a parent's shame or weakness can be more easily tolerated if the child believes that she has an equal or greater deficit. For example, one 15-year-old girl internalized her shame and called herself stupid. Fearing that people would discover her stupidity, she was shy and withdrawn. Her shyness and withdrawal were really an attempt to make sure that no one ever learned about the abusive, demeaning, and psychotic behavior of her alcoholic mother. By isolating herself, focusing on her own feelings of inadequacy, she hid from herself and others the embarrassment she felt about her mother and the feelings of helplessness that she experienced. Number 4. During your young life, you developed ways to protect yourself from emotional discomfort and pain, but exactly what is this self you are protecting? Your sense of self includes your perception of your attributes, talents, skills, ideals, and values. It is your self-concept. Essentially, your sense of self is who you think and feel you are. Technically, it is a very complex mental phenomenon that develops early in life and undergoes various revisions in adolescence and midlife, as well as in a life crisis. When you were a child, you modeled yourself after the characteristics, features, and attitudes of your caregivers. These identifications with others created and modified your sense of self. Ultimately, they formed your identity as you took on those qualities as characteristics of your own unique personality and integrated them with your natural talents, abilities, and social opportunities. At times, you may be somewhat alarmed at the identifications you've acquired, or they may amuse you, such as when you think, "Oh my gosh, I sound just like my mother." Considering yourself as acceptable and being certain in your sense of who you are, having an identity and a set system of values may determine your self-confidence and your ability to be in an intimate relationship without having a fear of humiliation, rejection, and ultimately shame. Number 5. Your conscience helps your sense of self decide if what you do is right or wrong and good or bad. Governing your thoughts and behavior, and evaluating your behavior in relation to others, your conscience is like a little critic within your head. When you fail your conscience, you feel anxious or guilty. Your conscience can be like the best and the worst of your parents. In fact, most of your conscience and your capacity to self-evaluate originate from your identifications with approving or disapproving parents or their representations in your mind. The rest is made up of other significant people and experiences that you identified with in your life, in addition to your basic disposition at birth. Number 6. One significant way in which you define yourself has to do with your ideals, ambitions, and what you value. Your ideal self is what you aspire to be, that is, the best that you think you could or should be. The ideal self tries to maintain or restore the feeling you once had, or imagine having, of being unconditionally loved and admired. At times, you may get glimpses of that feeling, perhaps if you receive an award that makes you feel as though you belong in the news, or at those times when you challenge yourself and succeed. You have a capacity to evaluate what you think of yourself relative to your ideal self. Your ideal self can be reasonable and attainable, or it can be inflated and unrealistic. However, objectivity about yourself relative to your ideal self can be clouded or colored by your emotions and experiences. Number 7. Both closeness and distance can be uncomfortable or threatening for white knights, since either can evoke vulnerability. Intimacy may be threatening because it creates the potential for loss. Emotional or physical distance from a partner may lead to insecurity that intimacy will not be restored. Controlling behaviors provide short-term security because they influence both your own and your partner's feelings. You may use various means for control. For example, you may behave in an ingratiating way with your partner with the expectation that he will then want you. You may evoke your partner's sympathetic response so that she will remain close to you, perhaps out of guilt or obligation. You may behave in a way that incites fear, anger, or neediness in your partner so that he will need you. Or you may provoke your partner to become distant from you when intimacy feels threatening. Number 8. The terrorizing, terrified white knight struggles to keep her vulnerability hidden. Her reactions to shame and weakness are more intense than those of the tarnished white knight. Given her chaotic inner world, she believes she must take extreme measures to maintain a sense of emotional safety, stay close to her partner, and avoid abandonment. These measures often involve physically and emotionally controlling her partner. Needing to keep his fear and shame hidden from others, the terrorizing, terrified white knight is reluctant to risk exposure by participating in psychotherapy. If he does go for treatment, it is usually at the insistence of some external source, a partner who is threatening to leave, or an outside agency, legal or otherwise, that requires him to be in therapy. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you probably will not see us again. If you have, congratulations, you are growing every day.